Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I want to talk to you about a post that Meg at Megaset has put out on Twitlonger. It's about a 5-minute read. I'm not sure what Twitlonger is. I think it's some sort of blog site. But the content here is what's kind of important. In particular, one thing that I'm going to hone in on for this video. If you watch the Titan Forge podcast with Dratnos and Tettles, they did talk about this for 20-30 minutes towards the second half of their podcast. I'll put a link towards that below, as well as I'll put a link towards this blog in the description below as well. But there is something that I want to hone in on. I'm going to briefly summarize the main contents of the page, but the main contents of the page isn't exactly what I want to talk about, although I will put my opinion on it. But yeah. But first, please like, comment, subscribe. We are so close to 2K subs. We're so close. Help out, please. It's awesome. All the positive community, all the positive support you guys have given me, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. There's a Twitch link down below, as well as a community Discord link down below if you want to talk about this any further. Discord tends to be one of the easier ways to reach me, or you can, if I'm live, which I have been live between 4 to 6 days a week, depending on scenarios, and that number is only going to grow or be more consistent once summer comes out and my oldest can start babysitting my youngest, because then I can start streaming more and paying her to babysit. Why else have kids? So yeah, all of those links are down below as well. If you are a struggling tank, or you want to kind of figure out what you're doing wrong or anything, or you think you would like some coaching, there's a Google Drive link down below as well. If you want to upload a video of one of your key runs, I'd be happy to go through and give you some coaching tips and things like that. So there's that. So what the post is about here. Now this is about the 0.1% Mythic Plus title. It started last season, and now it's this season as well. It pushed forward to this season, where the 0.1% of Mythic Plus high IO players will get a title. It's Cryptic Hero, I think it is this season. I think it was like Tormented Hero last season. And what happens is with the change to IO and Blizzard overtaking it, instead of it being Raider IO and Blizzard KSM just being like, hey, time 115 of every dungeon and you're fine, doesn't matter what week it is, tyrannical or fortified, you'll get your whatever. This is based off the Raider IO, which Blizzard has then implemented. But what happens is if you deplete a key and you're only like 30 seconds to a minute long over, you still get pretty much the same IO. It's like very little less than had you timed it by not much. And apparently there's a lot of players that are in that 0.1% that have a lot of depleted keys as their highest key score, adding to their score. And I mean, if you're in the 0.1% and you're trying to get a Mythic Plus title, I can totally understand why all of your keys should be depleted within that score, but whatever. This really isn't about that. She came up with a couple of solutions, and number one is the one I want to hone in on. So we're going to start with number 2. Make the title requirements specifically state that keys are to be timed to be counted towards the title. Your score would say whatever it is with whatever depletes, but the depleted keys wouldn't count towards the acquisition of the title. Pretty fair. I mean, that's a solution. Make it so keys over a certain level don't give score if depleted, or give half scores. For example, a depleted 20 would give close to a time 20, but a depleted 25 gives half to no score. Which is fair. That's a solution. Cool. If you're pushing past 25s, you should be aiming for timing them. Like, that's kind of your whole goal, is to time those keys, right? It's not just get something in the vault, because you can just do a 15 and crush it and be whatever. It's not about the loot at this point. It's about timing the key. Make it so depleted keys are worth 2 to 3 key levels lower than 1 key lower level, because what happens is if you miss time like a 20, but you have a times 19, your 20 is just as good as that time 19, but instead it could be like, a times 17 would be the same as a depleted 20. You know what I mean? Which is not, whatever. All good options. This is the one I want to hone in on. If the key remains incomplete, does not lose a key level, you can just start again. Example, wiping on the first boss of Miss 20, you walk out and you run the 20 again. This would encourage problem solving in pugs and pre-made content, as well as prevent things from being ruined by one individual leaving, or DCing, or underperforming. Allows you to recover a key if a server crash happens, weird bugs on bosses, etc., and also allows push groups to experiment with polls and limit tests without having access to tournament realms. This is one thing that we have spoken about at a decent amount of length between me and some of my friends at times, because it is really hard to push keys and gain that IO, because you're trying to figure out what now hits harder. What do I have to worry about? What's going on? And especially for me as a tank, I can tell you, there is a big difference between taking a 22 DOS Tyrannical and a 22 DOS Fortified. Where I need to allocate my cooldowns matter much differently on both. I can absolutely tell you that. Much differently on both. So that is something that you're going to want to have to think about and experiment. Because if you've ever run a 5 to 10, which, I mean, let's face it, you're listening to this video, chances are you have. There's certain mechanics that mobs have or bosses have that don't matter as much, and you can kind of just power through it or out heal it or just whatever, or just kind of, you know, ignore it. But in a 15, you can't. Well, when you make that jump from a 15 to a 20, guess what? There's new mechanics that you ignored in 15s because they didn't matter as much, but now matter in a 20. And then that scales up from a 20 to a 22 to a 23 to a... And you start having to learn these things. And I'm sorry, but if you look at the highest IO members on Raider IO, guess what? Most of them have access to the tournament realm. So they've gotten to practice these high keys, an absolute buttload, and just kind of restart and go. And they get to take that knowledge and that practice and apply it to live keys. You can't tell me they don't. Obviously they do, right? It's kind of how that works. And why wouldn't they? I'm not slamming them for, you know, not slamming them for using the tools at their disposal to make themselves better players. What I'm saying is not everyone has those tools at their disposal to become better players, right? On a live key, you're stuck with the key that you have. You either have to pug the one that you want in a higher setting, which is a shit show. The pugging scene can be an absolute crapshoot. It can be amazing, but it can be an absolute crapshoot. There's both ends of the spectrum there, and I'm not going to pretend it's any different. But not having that tool of, hey, all right, let's practice this first pull in necrotic wake that we want to do 20 times. Okay, cool, we got it right, let's move forward. And just keep practicing for things like that. That's how people get better, is you learn from your mistakes. But the thing is, if I've got 123 Spires of Ascension, and I want to complete that key, and it doesn't happen, I no longer have a 23 Spires of Ascension. And I might not get one until the week after, because the next week is Fortified. Because guess what? You have to completely relearn Spires of Ascension on Fortified at that level, because it's not the same as a 23 Spires of Ascension Tyrannical. It's just not. You have to reallocate and readjust. You can't pull as big. You have to separate certain things. You need to readjust cooldown alignments. There's a lot of changes that happen at that level of play that you just need to learn by playing. So when you come into the MDI and you look at these and they're like, oh my god, like, you know, some people are like, oh, they're so bad. Well, dude, it's not easy. And a lot of this is absolutely practice to a ridiculous point of restarting the key over and over and over and having access to the tournament realm to get better. I think what the current key system does is it separates the best from the best, and it keeps the middle pack down that want to adjust. They have a much harder road to get up. And that is just because they just don't have the tools at their disposal to, you know, work it out. And if they do want to try to get into the tournament realm, which they can through the time trials, if you don't pass your time trials, you've only had like 5 days, like 4 or 5 days that you could practice any key level at anyone you want, because once the time trial starts, you're given access to only 2 keys, and that's the key that they gave you for the time trial, which doesn't really help you much. It doesn't really help anybody that wants to progress and up themselves up to the next level to get there. It's a much harder route, whatever the French in me, la route. It's a much harder road to be on when you don't have access to all of the same tools as some of the higher ups. And I mean, don't get me wrong, those higher ups have absolutely earned all of the tools that they've got at their disposal. They have crushed it in time trials. They compete in MDI. They do all of the things by being amazing players. Absolutely. What I think is happening here with the current Keystone level is There's a lot of people that could be amazing players, but just aren't given the right stuff. And if you allow this to happen, where if, you know, hey, it doesn't deplete, you know, if you depleted the key and you completed it, whatever, it goes down to a 19, out of 20 from a 19, cool. But you could just leave and practice it. This would develop a lot less hatred. Not less hate, but a lot less meanness, I guess, kind of rudeness towards underperformers, or just the sheer, like, if somebody DCs, the sheer feeling of dread. Thank you, Cal Cherry, for the follow as I was recording this. But that would just stop the absolute just dread that happens when you're crushing that, you know, 20 missed tyrannical. You're going through it. You've got like 2 big pulls left before you get to Tredova, and then 1 or 2 people DC at the same time. Like, things are going well, but the run is like, you're just gonna time it. You had maybe an extra minute, and you know, without the, you know, the damage, the, you know, the continuement of that 14 or 15k overall or 20k overall that was occurring, it's just not going to happen. That sucks. But you could just leave, maybe wait for them to come back and say, oh, internet error, this or that, or find somebody new and still have another shot at it. That would promote much more healthy gameplay. People would not be anywhere near as mad with pugs or whatever and be like, okay, look, dude, I'm sorry. This really isn't working out. We find you're underperforming in a key. We're going to restart it. We're just going to let you go for this one. Sorry. Like, you know, we've all had that issue where, like, we join someone, we pug with someone, and we're like, okay, yeah, they seem really good, and then they're not. I mean, people have bad days, you know, people get carried. There's a lot of different factors that go into being good or not or whatever, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. Is I think it would promote super good gameplay among people that want to get to those level of MDI players, that want to get to that high IO, but don't have all of the tools necessary. And you don't need to give them access to the tournament realm for them to get better, but being able to practice those higher keys and not only having 1 or 2 or maybe 3 shots if they're lucky in a single week to be able to do so on a, you know, whatever certain key, because sometimes certain keys just don't drop. And if you have a group of, you know, you and your 4 friends, and those are the people that you like to play with, and for some reason it's been 3 weeks in a row and not a single one of you can get a Sanguine Depths, but you all want to do it. That sucks. You don't get to practice it. So the one time that you get a key and you're like, all right, cool, first Sanguine Depths in 3 weeks, let's go. Guess what? You haven't practiced it. It's going to be incredibly tough, and there's a whole lot of learning curve to go through, because the only time you've done it before, maybe you get a 23 key. The only time you've done it before is a 20. You know, things get a little bit harder. And on top of that, the less amount that you do dungeons, the worse that you get at them, right? You become rusty, no practice. So this is something I just kind of wanted to bring up and talk about my opinion here. Am I completely out of line? Am I wrong? Go, leave it down in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? What do you think could be done to help progress the level of Mythic Plus players to make the community better? I would absolutely love to hear your opinions. Of course, please keep it civil. This has been a super positive community so far. Let's keep it that way. But I would love to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. So please like, comment, subscribe. Love you guys all to death. Happy tanking, and I hope you guys are having a blast in Mythic Plus.